I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore when all of this happened, okay? Shame like I had never experienced before. Kind of shame, you forget how to breathe. That was the first attractive thing about faith for me. You come to find that most of these stories of saints in the faith were full-blown f***ups. They weren't perfect people who did perfect shit their whole lives and then wound up, requirement.
Touched by God from the beginning, pooping gold, like, yeah.
It wasn't that way.
I went through like an existential crisis, which turned into some kind of like exploration, really.
The news that had come out has been like I've been abusive to women, and I've been shooting dogs, and I've been willingly giving women STDs, and like it's disgusting. It's depraved. And my mother is embarrassed beyond all imagination. She wanted nothing to do with me. And I call my mother, and I do really believe that this saved my life.
Welcome to our channel, Make Faith Famous, where we cover the dramatic stories and intersections between celebrity and faith. I know you just want to hear Shia's crazy story, so I'll save the commentary for the end. Please subscribe and share your unfiltered thoughts in the comments below. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, these are the big money movies. These are the international movies that may have come here, but these movies don't mean anything. They have no intrinsic value. They have no spirit. They don't mean anything. Entertainment. All these movies, I have big shame about these movies. They don't mean anything. I felt like I was living a life that was meaningless. And so I drank a lot and smoked a lot of weed. Very lascivious with women. And was trying to like fill a hole, just constantly chasing instincts, just like an animal. And thought I was in control of things. And I was in an industry that would applaud that. And so I would come to set and I would freak out in front of a camera, ooh, and people would clap, and then I'd go home and I'd be a crazy person. And I hurt people, was a big sinner in my life, and grew up believing that that was the way. Then I thought my life was pointless, and then I kept making money, getting famous, smoking weed, drinking, hurting people, lying to people, deceiving people. And then about 11 months ago, a woman put out an article in the New York Times saying I hurt her very bad. And then all of the things that I used to use to fill my that emptiness up stopped working. And then I didn't want to be alive anymore. So I, in the States we have something called Zoom. I don't know if you have it. And I had a producer. I had gotten arrested in Georgia for fighting with a policeman.
The producer was arrested?
No, I was arrested making a movie in Georgia for fighting with a policeman. And on that movie was a producer who was in a spiritual program that helps people who have a problem with alcohol. And he told me to go on this meeting. So I go on this meeting and I see 50 men smiling and laughing. And that's my first sign of God, is laughter. And so I listen, because I don't have any laughter in my life. And I see they're laughing with each other, and they have friendships, and they have camaraderie, and they have this fraternity. And I feel like, ooh, this is like a family. I've been making these movies all this time to build a family, making money to get a family, but my family was disaster, and I'm seeing a family, and I had tried to do this before, but this time I had none of the tools that used to bring me joy or fill that hole up worked anymore. I would smoke weed and not get high. I would just be worse off than I was before. Or I would drink and I wouldn't get drunk. Or I would have sex with random women and I wouldn't feel any joy. There was none of the things I was doing to fill that human instinct were being fulfilled. And one of these men in the meeting, he says, we all share, everybody shares in the meeting. And one of the men in the meeting says, you don't have everything you want, but you have everything you need right now. And he says, if you have God in your life, you're playing with loaded dice. God cheats in your favor.
So do you think it was the hand of God who helped you in that difficult moment
yes,
of your life?
God God destroyed my fake life. And at the time I was heartbroken. I thought, nah, this is, like, I don't want to be here anymore. I was ready to leave this world. And at first I fought it a lot. I thought, wait, I didn't do all these things this woman said about me, and I wanted to fight it, and I wanted to go on social media and say all this stuff, and I wanted to talk to the world and say, oh, this didn't happen, here's the proof, and I wanted to argue. Yes, God's hand was involved in that woman going public with the damage that I caused her, yes. So if I'm going to this meeting a couple days, and finally my spiritual guidance, my friend, my partner online, says, come meet me at the beach. And I have no God in my life, because my idea of God is just fear. And this man is talking from a fearless place, so I believe him. And he points at the ocean, at the waves, and he says, I know you don't believe in God, that's okay. So why don't you just try to stop the waves? I said, what do you think, I'm stupid? Like, okay, yeah, I know I can't stop the waves. I'm not an idiot. Okay. He says, I know. Oh, wait. He says, I know you can't, I know you don't believe in God, that's okay, but your life is terrible. Your life sucks. The way you've been leading it is a disaster. Your life is a disaster. And I know he's right, and so I'm willing, because I'm in pain. And I say, stop waves, and the waves don't stop. And he says, no, put your back into it, really try. And I say, stop waves, and they don't stop. And he says, I just want you to pray to the waves until God shows up. And so I do. It gave me hope. But faith came later. It gave me belief, hope and belief, but not faith yet, because I didn't read the gospel. Let God do it. Let God take control of your life, and things will work out.
Vedo che ti commuovi quando parli di questo.
You can see you're touched when you talk about this.
Yes, I do really believe that this saved my life. I think that it depends on a person's willingness, you know. Pain is not a fad. I have the people that I've met who've had big conversion experiences in the church come from deep pain or very real experiences with evil. I don't know another way in. My wife is open to being baptized. My child will be baptized. I'd like to come here and have my child baptized here. I have relationships with religious men now that I didn't have before.
But who is Jesus Christ for you?
Lord, the Redeemer, Savior, like a best friend.
Ti rende felice questo percorso di conversione?
Does this conversion make you happy?
Yeah, yeah. Happy, I don't know if happy is the word. You know, when you look at Christ on the cross, you know, you wouldn't describe that man as happy, but joyful in his suffering, because he had purpose. And I feel like now my life has purpose.
Sai, Shia, le tue lacrime sono belle.
Shia, your tears are beautiful.
Oh man, stop it, man.
Non sono segno di debolezza.
Great strength that comes from the shine in your eyes.
Yeah. I used to be a big manipulator, so I feel weird about this. I get scared that I'm, you know, I used to manipulate a lot, you know, and I used to lie a lot, and I don't want to do that, and so I get scared sometimes to be emotional. I would say, if you're running with God, you're playing with loaded dice. God cheats in your favor. And you may not have everything you want right now, but you have everything you need right now.
In our heads, we all have this epic archetypal journey from empty, debaucherous star to diligent, upstanding person. But the reality is that story is rare. It really doesn't happen that often because I think fame and riches are so attractive, so entrapping, and they somehow keep people in this constant carrot and stick sort of cycle or situation where they really can't get out. And so I think it's all the more we're celebrating when people like Shia do successfully get out, get the illusion stripped from their eyes. And these are exactly the stories I like to highlight on this channel. And by the way, real quick, if you're enjoying this video and the mission we're doing here on this channel, please consider supporting us and simultaneously getting something tangible in return by picking up one of these awesome Make Faith Famous hats from our online store using the links below the video or the QR code up above. These are faith-focused, durable, great conversation starters and remind the world that we are making faith more and more famous across the globe. Anyways, I'm very curious what parts of Shia's story stuck out to you the most. And don't worry, we have several more clips where Shia shares even more intimately his thoughts about his transformation. Just let me know what part of the story resonates with you the most and why, and I'm very interested to read and participate in the conversations that are happening in the comments. As for me, there's so much to love, but as a Christian man myself, I love the part where he's talking about how Jesus is not only his savior, but his best friend and whatnot. That's really moving for me, especially when he tears up, and I like how he always seems to be looking out for the hand of God and like the exact tangible ways God moved the chess pieces of his life, so to speak. He mentions how God used his suffering, his pain, his ego, even the accusations against him, and even brutally, the harm and pain he caused others to bring Shia to him. It's just a neat testament to how God can literally use anything evil and turn it good. Anyways, I know not everyone is a faith nerd like me and people get mad when I philosophize on this channel, but I just wanted to share some thoughts I had from the heart, as I hope you do in the comments. Thanks for humoring me, and let's check out the next couple of clips together. Video. For example, he has an absolutely stellar piece about faith on an incredibly huge podcast with fellow actor John Bernthal. This podcast episode has 11 million views. So it's just great to see Shia share about faith so profoundly on such a huge platform. Really, it's perfect material for me to show you on Make Faith Famous, since that's our whole deal, right? Check it out.
I don't know, that was the first attractive thing about faith for me, was the laughter.
Wow.
And the fact that these monks aren't like docile, solemn all the time. You know, they cut each other's hair, they're in the gym, they're dudes, but they also have a principled life. And that became very attractive to me at a certain point. I've always been attracted to a Marine, to a gangster, to an extremist who's cultivated this kind of tribe around him, who it resembles some kind of weird, jumbled up idea of masculinity to me, these go-getters in life. Because really what's sexy is the commitment. The commitment to a lifestyle. You're committed to it. It's a lifelong thing. It's not a tattoo. There's no removal. This is forever, right?
That's right.
It's super appealing. You're a part of a group and they're knee deep in it. They are in love with what they got going on. And the Hollywood shit is secondary. I remember telling them what was going on for me in my life when I was there, and they were the first guys to say things to me that sounded like there was a route towards something salvific for me.
Like
It happened, like this stuff also happened to a man named St. Augustine. And they started breaking down Augustine to me and who he was, and started explaining to me who St. Francis was. And you come to find that most of these stories of saints in the faith were full-blown f***ups. They weren't perfect people who did perfect shit their whole lives and then wound up, requirement.
Touched by God from the beginning, pooping gold, like, yeah.
It wasn't that way.
Yeah.
The requirement for their sainthood was the f*** up.
That they've been there.
They had to have experienced real negative shit in their life to be able to have this other thing, this salvation, this hero's journey. They're explaining saints to me, it's like the hero's path, you know? And I'm a writer, I'm in my head, you know, what is my hero's journey? I'm always asking myself, well, what? And I always thought it was gonna be through the craft. That my hero's journey was kid from the bottom, came to Hollywood with no fucking training, and now I'm like, you know, working with these people and this, and I'm doing that. And that was my hero's journey, and it was so curt. It was so blunt and lazy.
I like how raw and real he gets there, and I know there'll be a lot of people of faith upset at his use of profanity there, but may I posit for a moment that Shia knows the exact audience he's talking to and how to reach them well. He's on this sort of manly macho podcast, and he's talking to Bernthal there in a real, visceral, honest macho way, and I think it's effective. It certainly jumps out at me, and he wasn't being dishonest, and he wasn't even being irreverent. Quite the contrary, how we just heard him talk about the saints in faith was actually more reverent than many things I've heard in churches. I heard once that Paul, in writing some books of the Bible, actually used some intense language that's been likened to curse words if you translate his writings literally. And so I don't want us to get too terribly hung up on that. But as always, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. And finally, our final interview we'll look at is a really open and genuine and heart-wrenching conversation Shia is having with a Catholic priest about just how far he fell during the time before his transformation. For context, the whole thing that sort of kickstarted this journey was his someone asking him if he wanted to play the role of this Catholic priest named Padre Pio in a movie, and that sort of launched him into this whole thing in a way that he described beautifully. It's really, really worth listening to.
I came in here on fire, and I didn't want to be an actor anymore, and my life was a mess, complete mess, and I had hurt a lot of people, and I felt deep shame and deep guilt. I didn't like to go outside much. I had a yearning not be here anymore. I was willing, because pain made me willing to go about this in a different way than I had previously. You know, my opinion about God before this happened, before the pain struck, before my world had crumbled, was art, love, and God, they all mean the same thing. They're synonymous. And as an artist who creates art, I found myself in a godly position often, right? Where I was in charge. And I had also been told my whole life, like, your life is your life. You have to make with it what you can, you know? You got to be a good guy, and then you got to get married, and then you got to get a house, and you got to get a job and do good at your job, and like, your life is your life, and things will work out if you put effort in, and you know, it's up to you. And I always really felt that, and it made it hard to believe in God, because it felt like my managerial skills are what are going to amount to a fulfilled existence.
Yeah.
When all of my designs failed, when all of my plans went out the window, when my life had led to serious infliction of pain and damage on other people, I threw up my hands like, my plans are garbage, and I don't want to be here anymore, and that was required. Mathematics or some kind of divine, it feels way, too coincidental to be a coincidence. But my life was completely, like I told you, on fire, and I was still egotistical on max. I was still grasping at straws. How do I hold on to what I've lost? How do I build a career again? And so when this director who I respected, I had known he made movies that I really loved. You know, Bad Lieutenant for me is one of the greatest performances ever made, and I know he's an actor's director, and the fact that there was this director reaching out to me, because at this point I'm nuclear. Nobody wants to talk to me, including my mother. The manager's not calling, the agent's not calling. I'm not connected to the business anymore. And so the fact that this man reached out to me felt like something like, in my egoic mind, wow, this is a miracle.
This is my chance.
This is my chance. Yeah. And so my ego shows up. And now I'm like, yeah, well, Padre Pio. And my ego is what makes me research Pio. It's not my Catholicism or my yearnings towards God. So you thought this would be
a cool role for me to play.
Great, now I can get back on the horse. You know?
Yeah, okay.
And so I start researching Pio. And as I'm researching Pio, he tells me about his plans to make a movie, and he tells me that Willem Dafoe is going to be in the movie. And now I'm really in ego. Wait, so I can go from bottom barrel to working with Willem Dafoe? This is my chance, back on the hustle, back on the ego.
Yeah.
And I start leaning into this thing, and he says, well, if you want to do this role, I need you to start researching. Go up and find I need you to go find a seminary, a Catholic seminary.
That's when you made your way up to San Lorenzo.
So the closest seminary to me, living in Pasadena, was San Lorenzo. So I drive up there, and I park my truck, and I start living in the parking lot. And I'm immersing myself in this world, and I'm sending videos back to Willem and Abel, who at the time were, working on the script, and I'm falling into a group of men that met me in San Lorenzo, namely a guy named Brother Jude, who starts talking to me about the gospel. And he says, well, if you're going to play Pio, you need to read the gospel. And so I'd never read the gospel, and he's reading Matthew to me.
So you'd never read the Gospel of Matthew straight through?
Yeah, okay. I've read all Sam Harris. I've watched all the TED Talks.
Yeah, right.
And was really good at attacking Catholicism because it made me feel superior. It
made me feel kind of agnostic/atheist at the time.
Yes, I'd like to argue because it made me feel like I was in power.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to be contrarian. Yeah. I like to sit with a bishop and then put you on your heels because that would make me feel powerful.
Right.
Which I find most secular people enjoy, the control of it.
Yeah.
Because so much of life is uncontrollable, to feel in control feels good. So I was that guy. I come up with these arguments. My mother had a spirituality that was sort of undefined.
She was Jewish, right? Your mother?
Yeah. but like hippie Jewish, like not like traditional Jewish according to the Testament. My mother had never read the Old Testament. She was Jewish in culture. She liked the art. She liked being a part of it. She liked the rabbis and the charisma, but she wasn't a practicing Jew in that she wore tefillin and read the Old Testament. And I had never been given any of this information. I've been bar mitzvahed phonetically. I read the Hebrew phonetically. So it felt like a show. It felt like a hustle.
You didn't know what you were saying.
I didn't know what I was saying. And in that way, it felt, and it wasn't emotional. It felt like I was doing it for my grandmother, who at that time was on her last leg, and I was told I needed to get bar mitzvah for my grandmother.
And you were like 13 at the time? At the
13,
age,
and I read it phonetically, and my grandmother's happy, and they put me on a chair, and that's my spirituality for a long time. And it felt fake, because I never invested, I had never felt any real suffering in my life. So I didn't have any willingness to have any belief. So I had no faith. Okay, so that's the.
So now you're up at San Lorenzo and you're given the Gospel of Matthew.
I'm reading
it for the first time.
I read it for the first time, and things start to strike me, like John the Baptist.
Yeah, okay.
Like the story of John the Baptist, being a reformed hedonist, being this man who's wearing like this who was sort of like, scraggly and like, he kind of felt like an old Western character from some kind of like I don't know, like he felt like a cowboy.
Eating locust and wearing
he felt like kind of rustic and strong and masculine. And my opinion of Christ at this point felt almost like I was reading about a Buddhist, like this very soft, fragile, all loving, all listening, but no ferocity, no romance.
Then you hadn't read the Gospel.
I hadn't read the Gospel.
At that point.
I just had this art that I had seen of like this very soft.
More feminized Jesus.
Yes. And so I hadn't had this idea of like the Old Testament Christ on a horse, cape dipped in blood, sword. I had none of that was in my lexicon of knowledge. So all I knew about was this very soft, meek Jesus, which didn't fit into my idea of what masculinity would be. I come from my dad was a Mongol biker, it's like it wasn't appealing to me. And then I read about John the Baptist and it became quite appealing. The grizzle.
Yeah, right.
And then you get further into the gospel and you start getting into like elements of this like redemptive, it felt like I started reading about a route. I started like reading a map, towards something that felt like let go. That's really what I got out of the Gospels. If I could wrap it up in 2 words, it was let go. And at that time when I was reading it, I was holding on so tight to a life that I was slipping away through my hands, to 35 years of management, that the Gospel gave me this invite to just let go. What never was appealing to me about Buddhism was this idea, like, if I'm in a boat and the boat is sinking and I don't know how to swim, Buddhism is a book that tells you, and read this and learn how to swim better. And at the time in my life, like, I didn't want to swim anymore. I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore when all of this happened, okay? Shame like I had never experienced before. Kind of shame, you forget how to breathe. You don't know where to go. You can't go outside to get like a taco. Like, you don't want to go anywhere.
And that's where you are when you're up there reading the Gospel and thinking about the playing Tyree Peel. You're in that state.
Yes, but I'm also in this this deep desire to like hold on.
Yeah.
And so I read the Gospel with this man, Jude, and I keep hearing like in many different variations of it. I'm not going to explain the whole Gospel here, nor do I need to, it's you. But I keep hearing let go. Mm-hmm. And to a person who's been gripping so tight for so long, it feels like, it just feels like, it just feels like the right move to let go, like complete surrender for real. And it stops being this like prep of a movie, and it starts being something that feels beyond all that.
Okay, there's maybe 5 more minutes of him explaining his journey with even more emotional revelations, but let me just pause here to say, like, this is such a crazy story with so many layers and complexities to it, and it, to me, feels exceedingly genuine, even though the backdrop for this is his acting for a role in a movie. I really love that part about just letting go. That's really profound and underscores to me the genuineness of this journey. Shia's been on. He talks about his lack of a spiritual upbringing and his focus on acting as his idol and his eventual downfall and how it led him to this point. And it really seems like the right people were there at the right time to be warm and receptive, and but most importantly, he's genuine towards him. And he read the Gospels with them, and he saw Jesus and Christianity itself in a whole new light that spoke to him. Shia seems very focused on masculinity, which can be a blessing and a curse, of course. And so this perspective shift, I think, was necessary and exactly what he needed to not see Jesus as feminine or weak, and to see really God's true plan for godly men outside of our cultural sort of toxins we've latched onto in modern times. It's a really unique angle to see. And it just makes me wonder if young men nowadays, if we can use that as an entry point to bring young men from atheism, agnosticism, skepticism, materialism, spiritualism, whatever, to a more mature and robust faith in Christ.
And then I meet these women, Sister Lucia of the Sacred Heart Sisters, who starts really like catechizing me in a very real way, in a very like, let's go through it, let's talk about it paragraph by paragraph. And I started falling into this group, and I'm living there. So I'm taking showers in there, and I'm eating with them, and we're hanging out. And
they're drawing you into the Christian, the Catholic thing. They're kind of drawing you into the gospel, into a certain way of life.
But more than that, it's not even like they're drawing me into like laughter. They're like sharing jokes with me. It's like we're just like hanging out. And at this time, I had no friends in my life. But then I hear a thought like, call your mother, tell her you love her. Now, me and my mother at this time, my mother don't want nothing to do with me. You know, the news that had come out has been like I've been abusive to women, and I've been shooting dogs, and I've been willingly giving women STDs, and like it's disgusting. It's depraved. And my mother is embarrassed beyond all imagination. She doesn't want nothing to do with me. And we hadn't talked, and I'm living in this parking lot. And I get out of Rosary with You, and I call my mother, and I say, I don't have much to say to you, but I love you and I'm safe. And she said, oh, I'm so grateful. And she hangs up the phone, and it's the first time I had really like talked to my mother, and I felt this peace. Because I had all this resentment and animosity, like, how could you dip on me? You're my mother. You know, no matter what happens, like, this is conditional love that you offer me. So, you know, then I start reading the Confessions by Augustine and his mother and that relationship. And like, everything starts to feel like click, 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 click.
Right.
And Augustine being like a hedonist who had made all these flaws. And then they started explaining Francis to me and all this ego that was in Francis. Just a complete egomaniac.
Same story, right.
Yeah, like, and I start feeling all these connections, and I start seeing this route, and and it says let go, and I find a way for myself. This is all before we're even in the movie. I'm not even reading the script yet. I'm just like, it's like laying the ground, I'm not even into Pio yet. I'm passing Pio's statue every day, and I'm kissing him on the hand just out of like reverence for the statue. But I don't know anything about the man yet. Then I get to reading about Pio and about suffering. Now, this is another hack that happens to me at some point where I felt like my suffering was pointless. I didn't understand what was going on. I felt like, you know, and Father James walks me through like offering your suffering up as a purposeful. As like intrinsically valuable, that God taps certain people to go through certain suffering so that they can be more effective at bringing the good news forward. And we start talking about purpose. And I'm questioning like what my purpose is, because before this moment, my purpose was just to be a good actor. My purpose was just to be the best actor. That was my whole purpose in life, like just such a little dream, like the dream of an ant. Yeah. And James says, you know, what are you good at? And I'm like, I'm good at bleeding in front of people. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, that's what I do. You know, I sort of just throw myself at walls. They film me. People tell me it's good. That's all I know how to do. He's like, okay, so you're good at suffering. How are you going to help other people with that? I was like, I guess I'll make movies and stuff. And he's like, yeah, but what else? And we start getting deep off into this conversation and what the arithmetic of purpose is. And James says, you find out what you're good at first. You find out how you can help other people with that, and that is your purpose. Yeah. And that's the leapfrog. Meek and weak are two different things. No, right. And let me explain the difference to you between being meek and being weak. Meek is to be treasured. Meek is to be valued. Meek is a submissive respect. Weak is having no faith. And he starts explaining stuff like that to me, where, you know, meek in my head, from a kid who never had a puberty ceremony. I mean, you know, Judaism, and you're 13 and they put you on a chair and you get a driver's license, but it's not like I wander off into the woods and come back with a lion's head. You know, there's no puberty ceremony for a young man today.
You know, that's a problem in our culture.
Yes.
We've forgotten how to do that.
And you don't really know what it is to be a man, you know, and James starts talking about mountains. You know, this is where Seven Story Mountain comes about, but we were in a conversation about a mountain, about what in nature is masculine. And I'm like, and he says mountain. And he says, do you know why? He goes, because it's immovable. You know, the wind is not going to move a mountain. And then we start talking about my wife and what my wife wants in a man, and being stable, and where that stability comes from for a man, and that it's not going to be something you will. It's going to be something you lean on. And that mountain is in that chapel. This is like my journey to this. He starts
brought
making
you back to the Blessed Sacrament.
Yeah, but he does it like through this rah-rah cowboy talk. You know, I feel like I'm listening to like I don't know what to describe it as, but it feels like John Wayne. It's like this rah-rah kind of thing that touched on it touched on this thing that I came from, and it accounted for this whole side of this Christ that I didn't know yet. And he sort of like masculinized the whole thing for me as this warrior's journey. And he starts reading like Heraclitus to me. I don't know anything about Heraclitus, but he's like, there's this quote I want to read to you. And he goes, you know, Heraclitus talks about what a warrior is. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says, you know, out of 100 men, 80 are just targets. 10 are fighters because they 10 are fighters because they make for the battle and we're grateful for them. But the one is a warrior, and he will bring the others back. And, you know, I'm starting to have like emotional experiences with this guy in this, you know, with these cats running around, we're eating ice cream. And I'm having like emotional experiences with him, explaining Heraclitus and like this thing that I hadn't had before, which felt like a task, more than me, more than just like myself. And it was also like tapping into this other program that I come from. And so now I'm starting to share like in this other program on Zoom, like these guys are seeing me in a parking lot, and they're seeing these friars walk behind me.
What's going on?
And they're desperate for God over here as well. You know, that whole thing is about finding a higher power. And so they're seeing me like hang out at this seminary, and they start driving up. And the guys start...
Is that right?
Yeah, these guys that are in this other program start driving up to the seminary and start hanging out with these other friars, and my world sort of collides.
I'm Shia LaBeouf. I'm completely immersed in something way bigger than myself. I don't know if I've ever met a group of men as immersed in anything in my life. It's super attractive to see people give themselves to something so divine, and it's heartwarming to know that that there's a brotherhood like this that exists. I've been met with nothing but grace since I've been here. I've tried to like, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I can compare this to in my life thus far, and I'm so honored to meet you guys.
All right, that's about it for me this time. And I know my longer videos don't tend to perform as well because people don't watch them for very long. But if you've made it to this point, I just want to say thank you so much. You really are the driving force and backbone of this channel, and you're the fuel for keeping me going and making these. I love you, God bless you, and I'll see you next time.